Hi everyone and welcome back to Char's Pearls. In this episode we discuss knit nights, aka what some people call stitch and bitch or stitch and sit. Whichever you call it, let's get into it. Okay, before we get into all the nitty gritty details, let's talk about what a knit night is or sip and stitch. So basically, it's where knitters or whichever your craft, knitters, crocheters, I've even seen some places where they had cross stitchers and they come to a yarn shop or they meet somewhere and they all hang out and work on their projects together. Sometimes there's food and drink, sometimes there's not, but that's the best way I know how to describe it. A lot of yarn shops host them. I mean, some people can host them on their own. Like, you can actually find some on the, like, Meetup app, depending on where you live. But a lot of yarn shops host them. Some people host them at their house. Some people do Zoom, sip and stitch, or knit nights, all kinds of things. But yes, that's basically what a knit night is. A lot of times people are encouraged to bring not only their projects, but like drinks like wine or soda or whatever, and sometimes food, and they share it with all the other people in the group that night. Sometimes, especially if people are hosting at their house, sometimes they'll do a potluck. Sometimes they will, since they're hosting, they'll take care of all the food and refreshments. So it's no right or wrong way to do it, but that's typically what a knit night or sip and stitch or stitch and bitch is. And everybody does it differently. Every yarn shop's different. Every host is different. The group of people that attend are different. Like, there's no right or wrong way to host these things. I realized as I was recording this episode, and I realized it after I was done, but I also realized I was using knit night and sip and stitch interchangeably. I looked it up. I did not see that there were separate definitions, as well as I didn't see a definite definition of what it was. I've seen a lot of descriptions and people describing it in their own way. If you guys find something different, let me know in the comments. However, I always consider them to be the same, if not at least similar. Some people emphasize more of the sip part, where they really are about their wine, like that's their wine night, and then some people don't. Some people, they're more like, hey, I'm just happy to be around other people who share my interest in the fiber arts, and that's okay too. But no, I don't think there is a difference between sip and stitch, sip and bitch, knit night. I think they're pretty much in the same ballpark. Now that we know a little bit about what a knit night is, or stitch and bitch, or stitch and sit, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to stay with knit night for now. Now that we know a little bit about that, the next question is, what are some of the pros and cons of a knit night? Now, I feel like some of the pros are that you get to meet new people, you get to depend on if you have a knit night in a yarn shop or not. You get to see new products, new yarns, you get to, like, work on projects. Sometimes you might get a little bit of help while you're there from other crafters, or maybe from the yarn shop owner. Also, you get to not have to rush to spend some time at the yarn shop, because a lot of times these tend to be held like after hours, like after the yarn shop's held, and after the yarn shop is closed in the evening. So that's a plus. Um, some of the cons, I would say, if you're not a person who enjoys socializing or like being around other people while you knit or crochet, this may not be the place for you. Also, depending on the size of your yarn shop or place where it's been held, it can sometimes get a little bit crowded, depending on how many people show up that night. Some other cons, I guess they're not really a con, especially for people trying to sell yarn or people who work at a yarn shop, is like it encourages you to buy more yarn. If that wasn't your intention that night, it now is, like, not necessarily, but it can be. It can, that temptation is there. So your stash might definitely increase every time you go to a knit night. Not necessarily. Everybody's different. I tend to not always be tempted to buy something while I'm there, but for some people, it never fails. Every time they leave with new yarn. So there's that. Also, since it is in the evening typically, and it's when you're getting off work, sometimes, for me anyway, I found this kind of a deterrent. Sometimes I'm tired and I don't really feel like going back out, especially if I go home first and then go to the yarn shop. I have to kind of like talk myself up to like leave the house again because now I'm comfortable and I don't want to. So for me, that could be a con, and that can be something that would deter me from it. But everybody's different. Some people this isn't a big deal for. So now you know, here's some of the pros and cons, something to consider. On to our next segment. While you can sometimes get a little bit of help at a knit night, one thing I do want to mention that yarn knit nights aren't specifically a class. Matter of fact, they're not a class at all. They're a time to socialize and hang out with other people who are interested in the fiber arts world. While there might be somebody there you could ask a quick question, whether it be the yarn shop owner, a teacher, or another fellow knitter or crocheter. Like, you might ask them about a specific stitch or something really easy, but it's not a class per se. So it's not to be confused with actually paying for a class and actually getting help or learning a new project. I've had some people ask me about that as well, and like, no, it's not a class. When you come to knit night, a lot of times, again, while you can ask questions and maybe get some help, it is not to teach you specifically how to knit or crochet or a new type of project or what have you. It's specifically there for you to socialize with other knitters and crocheters and so forth, and it's more of a relaxed atmosphere. Sometimes you might be able to ask a quick question and get an answer and be able to continue on with your project from there. But for the most part, a lot of times it's when the shops close. So the yarn shop person working there, whether it be the owner or what have you, they're a lot of times off duty to or they're working overtime. So it's not your typical yarn shop hours where you're like, hey, I need help with a project. It's specifically there to socialize. Not that they'll necessarily turn you away, but that it's not going to be the class setting if that's what you're looking for. So that's something to think about. When I tell people, especially people who aren't familiar with knit nights or sip and stitch, or people who aren't familiar with the fiber arts community or yarn shops, when I tell people about a knit night, one of the reactions I get is, "Oh, that sounds cool. how do you join, or who all is allowed to go, or how do you get invited? And truth be told, I'm never sure how to answer that question, because I'm used to going to a yarn shop where it was free to all. Just, here's our knit night, here's the hours, come join us. But one thing that it brings to mind when people ask me that, is that not every knit night or knitting circle or sip and stitch or whatever you want to call it, not all of them function the same way. The more private ones, like the ones that are hosted in people's home, or they have, it's just their specific group of friends, that's something that is not open to the public. That's something you actually have to talk to that group about. Other ones, such as like meetup groups, I've never went to any of these, but I've seen where they'll tell you the location and they'll ask, it's not required depending on the group, but they'll ask for a donation of however much to participate in the group, and also the donations kind of help cover the cost of hosting the knit nights, such as like renting a space or the food or what have you. I've also seen where some yarn shops require you can come, it's free to come, but you have to either buy some yarn while you're there, or you have to be knitting from yarn that you bought already, like even if it's a week ago at that specific location. So when you're thinking about finding a knitting group or a knit night, those are some of the things you might want to ask about. But no, getting back to the ones I'm used to them pretty much being free for everyone. Like the yarn shop's just like, hey, we want to have as many people here as possible. We want to draw people to our yarn shop. We want to get new frequent customers. We want to open it up to everybody. It's a free social event, so to speak. So those are the ones I normally go to. So but it all depends on what you're looking for and what's in your area and so forth. I prefer, personally, to go to the free ones, not only just because it's free, but I feel like, I don't know. For me, I feel like the other ones, you're kind of forced to join a club before you actually, get to know if you like it or not. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I can be totally wrong. Also, I feel like a knit night also allows me to kind of fill out the yarn shop a little bit more, because when you're just in and out, you're just grabbing yarn and hitting out the door, you don't really always get to get to experience the full vibe of the yarn shop and who's normally there and who are their frequent customers and their staff and so forth. And I feel like a knit night is a good way to fill that out. So those are my thoughts on it. And who can come? Most of the time, it's especially the ones that, like I said, that are open, to anybody. It's no age restriction. It means there's no age restriction. You don't have to be a member of anything. It doesn't matter whether you knit or crochet. It doesn't even matter sometimes if you're doing a cross stitch. Those are the ones I like. Now there are some where they specifically knit, and it's specifically a knit night, and you have to be knitting. Or you got some that are more geared towards older women, or you got some that are more geared towards a younger crowd. You got some that I don't know, it's all kinds of demographics. So I would just say do your research and see if it fits what you're looking for. and a knit night if you're looking for a knit night. Now let's move on to our next segment. Now that we have talked about the pros and cons of knit night, before I get into the next segment, the lists of things I listed for pros and cons by no means are an extensive list. I'm pretty sure there's some things I have not thought of or didn't take in consideration that can definitely make the list of both sides of the conversation. So if you guys realize there was some I missed, let me know in the comments below. I like to hear a different perspective. Now getting into our next segment, are you a solo knitter or crocheter? Or are you a social knitter or crocheter? Myself personally, I tend to go both ways. It depends on my mood. It depends on the project I'm working on. It depends on what kind of day I'm having. So I don't have a specific preference towards one or the other side. Some of the things that make me not want to go to knit night would be like, I had a rough day and I just want to be home in my safe space. I'm exhausted, or I'm working late that night, something along those lines. Or I have a project that requires me to focus more, and either I do one of two things. Either I don't take that project to knit night, or I just don't go to knit night period and work on that project. And then when I get to a piece where I feel more comfortable being around people and socializing, then I might go to knit night or bring that project with me. But it all depends. It's no one like nice and neat answer from me. Things that make me go to knit night is because I enjoy showing support for the fiber arts community and supporting local yarn shops. And I want to continue to encourage the fiber arts community to grow and continue to explode. As well as I enjoy, like, if you're knitting or you have some kind of yarn craft, you have a love for yarn. And my love for yarn, like, it goes beyond a lot of things. So just to be around all the yarn and all the textures and the different weights and colors, like, all my senses are like completely immersed and indulged. Like, I'm happy just sitting around all the pretty yarn. So that's one thing. Another thing is also, I enjoy meeting new people. I enjoy being able to socialize and make new friends, as well as encourage other people to go to knit night with me. People that may not knew there was a knit night in the area. I sometimes enjoy some of the topics that come up at knit night because they're so unexpected. So, and sometimes they'll give you a laugh, or sometimes it feels good to be able, especially when it's a more serious topic, it feels good to bond with people who maybe you didn't know were feeling some of the same things you were feeling, but you guys connected over the love of yarn, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Also, sometimes I need help with a project, and maybe not a lot of help. Maybe I just didn't understand how to do a certain stitch, but once it's explained to me, like in 5 minutes or however long it takes, I'm able to sit through knit night and just basically cruise through my project and get a lot done, get a lot of rows in after I know what I'm doing. So those are some of my reasons for going to knit night and not going to knit night. And every week's gonna look a little different for me. So yeah, tell me in the comments, you guys tell me who is more of a social knitter, who is more of a solo knitter. Are you guys more like me, where it just depends on your mood or what's going on in your life at that time? Let me know. Yeah, that wraps up this segment. Moving on to our last segment. wrapping up this episode, my thoughts on knit night is there's no wrong or right way to have knit night. It's all about what's comfortable for you and the people you're doing it with. Whether you throw your own private knit night or whether you actually go to a knit night hosted in a public space such as a hall or a yarn shop or wherever. Also, if that's not your jam, then there's nothing wrong with that either. Like I said, there's some people that prefer to be in the comfort of their own home. They don't want to see nobody. They don't want to talk to nobody. It just wants to be them and their yarn and sometimes their cat or dog, but nobody else. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that either. I feel like, me personally, I'm a person who has the kind of attitude where it's like I want to experience as much as life as possible, even if I try it and realize I don't like it or it's not for me. At least I tried it. So my personal opinion, and you don't have to take it, but would at least be to at least go to a knit night one time, see how you like it, pick a yarn shop you really like, and just go there, try it out, see who you meet. If it's not for you, or maybe you like it, but you don't want to go faithfully every time there's a knit night, then you don't have to do that. It's all about what's comfortable for you. Also, if you live in a city or an area that has a lot of yarn shops, doesn't mean you have to attend all of the knit nights at all of the yarn shops. Maybe you want to pick a different one every week. Maybe you have your favorite yarn shop. And again, maybe you don't want to go to any of them. And that's okay too. But it's all about doing what makes you comfortable. And that's what matters at the end of the day. So stay safe. Enjoy what you're doing. And I'll talk to you guys next time.